You've tried changing your habits. You've tried setting better goals, but nothing sticks. That's not because you're lazy or unmotivated. It's because of one thing that you have probably never thought to change. And once you do, everything else becomes easier. Let me explain. In this video, I am going to break down exactly why most reinvention efforts quietly fail, even when you're trying really hard. I'll show you the invisible trap that has probably been holding you back, even if you're successful on paper, why it's so sneaky, and what actually works instead. And along the way, I will share a bit of my own story, plus some fascinating research that explains why we get stuck and how to break free. So if you've ever felt like you're meant for more, but you can't quite seem to get there, this might be the piece that you've been missing. Let's get started. I want to begin by talking about the real problem, the real reason change doesn't stick, because you've probably tried to change your life before. Maybe you downloaded a new habit tracker, set a bunch of goals, bought a journal with very aesthetic pages and a quote about becoming your best self, and for a while, it worked. But eventually, you drifted back to old patterns. The momentum faded, and you started thinking, maybe I'm just not disciplined enough. Maybe I don't want it badly enough. Maybe I'm just lazy. I want you to hear me when I say this. That's not the reason. Most people don't fail to reinvent themselves because they're lazy or unmotivated or bad at follow-through. They fail because they're trying to change the output without updating the operating system. It's like trying to run the latest software on a 2007 computer and wondering why it keeps freezing. The problem isn't your goals. It's not your morning routine. It's that you're trying to build a new life on top of an outdated identity. And there's fascinating research to back this up. A study from Stanford in 2011 found that when people were asked, "Are you a voter?" instead of "will you vote?" they were significantly more likely to show up at the polls. Why? Because it framed the action as part of their identity. When we see something as who we are, not just what we do, we are far more likely to follow through. When you shift from "I want to run a marathon" to "I'm a runner," or "I want to write a book" to "I'm a writer," or "I want to quit smoking" to "I'm a non-smoker," it's subtle, but it's everything. Because your brain works very hard to keep your actions consistent with your identity, even if that identity is outdated or unhelpful. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I was running myself ragged. Full-time doctor, 2 little boys at home, managing a household and renovating a house and writing a blog on the side because apparently I didn't value sleep. I kept adding things, new tools, new habits, better planners. I thought if I could just optimize my life a little better, I would finally feel like I was living the right life. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. I had the goals, I had the systems, but I didn't have the alignment. Because deep down, my identity had already started shifting. I wasn't just a doctor anymore. I was a creator, a teacher, a builder. And until I let that new identity take the lead, every life upgrade that I tried felt like putting lipstick on the wrong life. So if your reinvention efforts keep stalling, it's probably not because you're doing it wrong. It's because you're becoming someone new, but still trying to live like the old you. And here's the tricky part. Most of us have no idea that we're even doing this. These outdated identities, they don't show up like flashing warning signs. They show up as tiny thoughts that feel like facts. In the next part, I will show you how to spot the identity trap. That's the one that quietly convinces you to play small, even when everything in you knows that you're meant for more. So here's the sneakiest thing about identity. It doesn't show up like a problem. It shows up like the truth. It sounds like, "That's just who I am. I've never been good at that." Or "I'm not that kind of person." And the reason this is so tricky is that your brain loves consistency. It would rather keep you in a familiar identity, even if that identity is making you miserable, than risk stepping into the unknown. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling when your actions don't match your beliefs. So if deep down you believe, I'm not a leader, but you start taking bold public steps toward reinvention, your brain will start whispering all kinds of things to pull you back into the old version of you. It's not sabotage, it's just your brain trying to keep the story straight. For years, I had this identity of being the reliable one. I followed the rules, I made practical choices, I never rocked the boat. I was the person that you could count on to not make a scene, which worked great until I realized that I wanted to blow up my whole career and start something new on the internet. Not exactly on brand. I remember thinking, well, I can't leave medicine. I'm not that kind of person. And then one day I asked myself, wait, who decided that? Like, was there a committee? Did I miss a memo? No, it was just a story, one I had never questioned. So let me ask you, what stories are you still carrying? Not because they're true, but because they are familiar. Maybe you have internalized the story that you're the steady one who doesn't take risks. Or you're too old to start over. Or you never finish what you start. None of those are facts. They're just chapters in your old identity script, and you're allowed to flip the page. And if this is resonating, if you're starting to realize that your identity might need a rewrite, I created something to help. It's called The Reset. It's a free 5-day challenge to help you to shift your energy, your habits, and most importantly, your identity. You'll get short daily prompts and tools that I normally reserve for my paid students, and a printable tracker to help you to start building the new version of you, one small step at a time. You can grab it right now. The link is in the description below. Okay, so now we've pulled the curtain back on what has really been holding you back. But what does it actually look like to step into a new identity? How do you become someone new, especially when the old version of you keeps trying to hijack the wheel? That's what we're getting into next. Here's the truth that I wish more people said out loud. You don't need more willpower. You don't need a better planner. You don't need to optimize your to-do lists with color-coded stickers. Although, if that brings you joy, I support your sticker agenda. What you really need, though, is a new internal story, a new identity that aligns with where you're trying to go. Because if you're still operating with the identity of who you were 5 years ago, or who other people expect you to be, it's like trying to build a dream house on a foundation that was poured for a garden shed. You might make progress, but it's always going to feel unstable. Your identity is your operating system. Your habits, your goals, your plans, those are the apps. But if the operating system isn't compatible, the apps glitch. They crash, they don't load. Can't build a new life with the old identity running the show. When I first started to feel restless in my medical career, I tried to ignore it. I thought that I was just burned out or bored or tired, so I downloaded all the usual upgrades. Time management tools, better workflows, meal prepping Sundays, you name it. But what I really needed was a new internal label, because I wasn't just a doctor anymore. I was someone who wanted to teach, to create, to build, and I had to give myself permission to evolve into that. Let me tell you, that shift didn't happen overnight, but it started with a single question that I'm going to offer you right now. Who do I need to become in order to create the life I want next? Not what do I need to do, but who do I need to become? That's the unlock. And if your brain went a little fuzzy just now, or your inner voice whispered something like, I have no idea, or that's not me, don't worry, that's normal. Let me give you a simple starting point. This is a lightweight version of what I teach inside my deeper programs, and it's how I guide every reinvention process, starting with myself. I call it the remodel roadmap, and there are 3 R's. Step 1 is recognize what identity is currently driving your choices, what roles or stories are shaping your decisions without you realizing it. Step 2 is redesign. What new identity would align with the future you're trying to build? If your life were already transformed, who would you be? Step 3 is ritualize. What small, repeatable action could you take today that would reinforce this new identity. And that last one is key because identity isn't just about mindset, it's about evidence. You become someone new by living like them. So let's talk about how you actually do that. In the next part, I'm going to give you 3 really specific strategies that you can use starting today to stop waiting and start being the version of you that's already living your next chapter. So let's make this real. Okay, so how do you actually become someone new? How do you move from, I wish I were that person, to this is who I am now? Here are 3 of the most powerful strategies that I have seen work with myself and my clients and people who have gone through major reinventions without burning everything down in the process. Strategy 1, identity anchors. These are small physical or behavioral cues that remind you daily of who you're becoming. It could be a morning ritual that you never used to do, or a sentence that you say to yourself when you're about to shrink, or a new way you dress or walk into rooms or even set your calendar. When I started identifying as a creator, not just a doctor who blogs on the side, I changed how I started my mornings. No email, no admin. I lit a candle, opened a fresh doc, and wrote. That simple ritual became my identity anchor, not because it was productive, but because it was aligned with who I wanted to become. So, what is one daily cue that would remind you of who you're becoming? All right, strategy 2 is the micro-evidence method. James Clear in Atomic Habits, he says that every action you take is like a vote for the kind of person you want to become. And I love that because it reminds us that we are not waiting for some huge transformation. We're just collecting votes. You don't need to win the election today. You just need to start collecting votes. So instead of saying, I need to be confident before I launch this thing, try, what would a confident version of me do today? And then do that. That's your evidence. This taps into self-perception theory, which was first introduced by psychologist Daryl Bem in the 1970s. Self-perception theory suggests that we actually come to know who we are by watching ourselves behave. In other words, we don't just act based on who we believe we are. We become who we believe we are based on what we consistently do. So when your actions align with a new identity, even in small ways, your brain begins to update the story. Oh, maybe I am that kind of person. You don't have to fake it. You just have to act like it's not your first day being awesome. Strategy number 3 is borrowed belief. Now, let's be honest, becoming someone new is vulnerable. So sometimes the first step isn't believing in yourself, it's borrowing someone else's belief until yours kicks in. That might be a coach, a friend, a book, or even a YouTube channel where someone reminds you that what you want is normal, not delusional. And there is neuroscience behind this too. Dr. Tara Swart, a neuroscientist and psychiatrist, she talks about how simply being exposed to new possibilities can literally rewire your brain. When you see someone doing something you once thought was not for people like you, your brain starts to create a new neural pathway. It activates your mirror neurons, which are part of the system that we use to learn through observation. And it begins a process called mental rehearsal. That's when your brain starts to experience a future version of you as if it's already real, not in a magical woo-woo way, but in a deeply psychological way. Over time, your brain becomes less resistant to that identity because it's not unfamiliar anymore. It's not threatening. It's just available. I can still remember the first time that I saw another woman who had left medicine and was thriving, running her own thing, creating something meaningful, and my whole nervous system lit up like, wait, that's allowed? That was a borrowed belief moment, and I have had hundreds since. So ask yourself, what identity anchor can I add to my daily life? What micro evidence can I create today? And who can I borrow belief from when my own feels shaky? This is how you become someone new. Not all at once, not overnight, but one aligned action at a time. And here's the part most people miss. You're not creating a brand new identity completely from scratch. You're revealing the version of you that's already in there. So in this last section, I want to leave you with one final story and a reminder that this isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more than you've ever been. Here's what I want you to know. The version of you that can reinvent your life, they're not a fantasy. They are not some upgraded, flawless, superhuman alter ego. They're you, just unfiltered, unapologetic, unedited. The person you've always been underneath the roles and the labels and the expectations. One of my clients had been stuck for years. She had tried every planner, every time blocking method, every habit tracker under the sun, but nothing changed because every system that she tried was being filtered through a story that she didn't even know she was carrying. I'm the kind of person who always sabotages herself. That one line, that identity was the foundation, and no strategy could override it until she changed the story. When she finally released that identity and chose a new one, not just by declaration, but by action, everything shifted. Not instantly, but steadily and powerfully, because she wasn't just fixing herself anymore. She was becoming herself. So if you have been spinning your wheels, if you felt like nothing sticks, no matter how hard you try, please hear this. You're not broken, you're not lazy, you're not behind. You've just been trying to change your life with a story that doesn't fit anymore. And now you get to rewrite a new one. If you're ready to start that process, not just in theory, but in real life, the Reset Challenge is your next best step. It is short, it's simple, and it's designed to help you to shift your energy, your patterns, and your identity one day at a time. You can grab it right now. The link is in the description. I would love to guide you through it. And if you're still watching, you are my kind of person. The next video that I would recommend is this one, 3 habits that quietly stole 10 years of my life. Because when you're building a new identity, you've also got to stop feeding the habits that belong to the old one. I will link that video on the next screen, and then I will see you there. I lit a candle, opened a fresh doc, and wrote, just wrote. That's all. Okay, just take a breath now. And sip. All right.